So this afternoon, this evening, we're really going to stay quite low to the ground. So this today has the most information. You're not going to have quite so much information layered on tomorrow. And you know, all of the things, so many things. So this can be very agitating for Vata. And as well as staring at a screen, and then we get that onslaught of the senses as well. So we're going to keep it very, very slow, very, very low, and as nurturing as possible. So I cannot emphasize enough to please grab the extra cushion. Please grab, oops, I think my microphone got put on mute. Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm back. Please grab all the stuff you need to get yourself comfortable. So blankets, pillows, bolsters. We will be doing some posturing, and I also really encourage you to, like, if you get into a particular position and it's just like really nurturing, you're in that brahmana, or like a really like a nourishing quality or sensation, you totally have permission to stay right where you're at. The only guideline I give with that is if it's anything too asymmetrical, make sure that eventually you get to the other side. So we'll go ahead and start all the way down onto the mat. I'm going to show you this posture from a seat because it will be a little bit more difficult to see once we're belly down. But what you'll be doing is eagle arms in the upper body from belly down. So across, arms are going to crisscross in front of the heart from belly down, and you'll reach your palms, kind of walk on your fingertips out in opposite directions. Since you won't be able to see my arms once I'm belly down. That's what it's going to look like. So go ahead and come down, spin this way, this side, the mic's on. Go ahead and spin belly down. And it can be helpful to start getting there by coming first to like a Sphinx type pose. And then once you have your elbows underneath, slide your forearms so they're parallel to one another. And it doesn't matter which side you begin on, just remember which arm is on top. So I'm going to start with my left forearm atop my right. And then start to wiggle your fingertips all the way out. If you come down and you feel like your head is kind of hanging out in space, that's not necessarily bad or wrong as long as it's comfortable for you. If it doesn't feel comfortable, back it up, come out, grab for one of your blocks or a rolled blanket, and then work your way back in. And again, let your femurs, your lower body, home of Vata, be very, very heavy, very rooted, very grounded. These binds, getting into binds and holding, particularly the upper extremities, really close into your heart, into your trunk and torso. We're going to be super nurturing for Vata, for containing that energy that might feel like it's wandering a little bit after all of the information of the day. And so in a yin practice, once you settle in and find a still point, ideally we want to drop into an experience that is still, but also, you know, there might be some discomfort, but not anything that's sharp. Okay, so remember, Vata already has that rough quality, so it's okay if there's intensity of sensation, but also give yourself permission to let it be soft. It doesn't have to be sharp or rough. We'll be just about 1 more minute on this side. Make sure you have a nice fluid breath. 3 more rounds of breath. Your next inhale, very slowly raise your head, keep your gaze grounded. Slide your forearms back toward center, toward the front of your mat, and then swap the crisscross. So take your opposite forearm to the front. Kind of settle and resettle. Make sure you're really soft and surrendered and heavy in your whole lower body. And start to wiggle your fingertips right back out. So opposite directions, opposite side. Remember, you have the option to take a block or a rolled blanket or bolster or anything that's going to be supportive for the weight of your head. If the traction for your neck spine doesn't feel particularly good, go ahead and ease your way all the way down. Smooth out your breath. And you can offer a little invitation of ease to Vata. So if you're having difficulty landing right down into stillness, it's also okay, particularly in the first few postures, if there's like a little bit of fidgeting going on, a little bit of like the itchies, or you're adjusting or you can't really get comfortable. It's also okay to answer that call. Allow yourself to kind of work out. It's going to allow you to work anything out of the nervous system that feels unsettled, until you can come down to a space that can be more authentically still, without force, without that roughness, without jolting yourself into stillness. You have just about a minute left here. Unhurried cycles of breath. And with your inhale, your next inhale, you can start to lift your head, but keep your gaze grounded. Again, slide your forearms back toward a stack at the front edge of your mat. If you have your block or prop nearby, please flip it to the tallest setting, or if you're working with books, you can stack up some books or kind of fold your pillow or bolster here. And then separate your forearms. We're heading towards Sphinx, but it's going to be a type of Sphinx that's much more nourishing for Vata. So again, keep your lower body heavy, and then go ahead and rest your head right down onto the block, so that we can get that the benefits of the heart opening of this shape, of Sphinx shape, without losing or dissipating the energy, right? Because Vata wants to be contained. We really want to nourish the heart center for Vata. So allow your head to draw low. If you don't have books or a block handy, you can also simply keep your gaze down to the ground, or if it's okay for the neck spine, really let your head hang down low. just about 1.5 minutes here. So I would invite you to observe, in particular, any sort of quality or interaction or reaction you find in your mind in the spaces of silence. Vata can kind of run a little bit wild. Remember, one of the elements of Vata is ether or space. So if there's like way too much space, it can kind of run rampant. And remember, we also want to honor the sense organs by opening some space for silence. So notice your relationship to that when it's offered in the practice. We have just about 1 minute left to go. Last breath. And if you have your head supported on a block or pillow, lift your head just enough to slide that support out from underneath you. And then go ahead and release all the way down onto the mat. You can let your toes float upward to the sky and take a really slow and unhurried rock from side to side, just to kind of ease or soften anything that feels rough or compressed in the low back. Make sure your movement is both rhythmic and soft. It's unforced, it's not hurried, it's not erratic. Very mindful. And then go ahead and head back towards center. Slowly drift your toes back down to the mat. Slide your palms in under your shoulders and take a lift all the way up and back. You can step your knees in to about mid-mat and press into the earth or to blocks and roll all the way back onto your feet. So the next yin shape will be malasana, or a squat. If you feel particularly, so Vata can feel very fatigued because it's kind of just, it's always moving and it's always spreading out in different directions. So I really recommend bringing in a block underneath your hips to rest your sits bones on. If you are just feeling the fatigue of the day, you're still going to get the sensation, but it's a really nice grounded and a little bit more restful variation. So either here, unsupported, if that feels good for your hip structure, or up onto the support of your block. A little bit of a different variation for this yin pose. Make sure your arms, your upper arm bones are to the inside line of your knees, and make contact with the earth, and go ahead and let your head rest down low. You can keep your gaze, your drishti, onto an unmoving point on the floor or on the earth. You may absolutely also close the windows of your eyes. This is a good spot to explore the experience within and the experience of the environment around you. Particularly now that you have languaging around the gunas, the elements, start to observe your inner and outer environment. Notice if there's any sort of rigidity or roughness in your musculature, so you can let your back be rounded and soft and heavy. All of those opposing qualities to the lightness and the more roughness of the Vata. Out any pockets of resistance or roughness in your breath. Now just a little over a minute left. One last full smooth breath here. Start to roll your way up as fluidly, as smoothly as you can. You can remove, if you're up, propped up on support, remove that out from underneath you, keep the block nearby, and allow your hands to support your sits bones as you come on down to the earth. And then go ahead and extend both legs out long. So we'll work our way into caterpillar as our next pose. Please grab both of your blocks. Or again, you can get really creative. So those that are practicing at home, if you don't happen to have blocks handy, you can stack pillows, you can incorporate your bolster, you can fold it, but give yourself some space to get like a pretty high stack going on. I'm going to start by demonstrating with the tallest stack of 2 blocks end to end at the tallest height. So find that. And you may remember from this morning that I mentioned that Vata is really like the lower third of the body, but it's got like a special little nest in particular in the hamstrings. So we definitely want to make sure to address those. Get really soft in your belly, round your back, lean your weight forward, and rest your forehead, your third eye point, onto some support. So if you land in this really nice tall or high support, and you feel like it's not enough sensation or not the sensation you would like for your hamstrings, you can explore lowering your block. If the sensation is too extreme in the hamstrings, like it's bringing you into that roughness or sharpness, remember that's not what we want to create for Vata. You can also roll a blanket or mat underneath your knees. You can also elevate your hips up onto a blanket or a bolster to bring a little bit more softness into your hamstrings as well if it's sharp or rough. So take the time to adjust and readjust, find the expression that you need for your body to ensure that this isn't like a posture that you're feeling in your back, but that there's really something going on to nurture and feed this home of Vata in the hamstrings behind your legs. the responses, what's bubbling up, what is there to be observed, qualities of inner experience, qualities of your external environment where it's beginning to get dark around you, beginning to cool down. Maybe you're in a place where there's artificial heat, which could feel warm, it could feel drying. Simply notice. Just about a minute left to go. You may notice after holding for about 2.5 minutes that there's space to go in a little deeper, but smoothly and softly. Those are supportive qualities for Vata, so without force and roughness. Perhaps lower it down, take a block away, or lower it, or come all the way forward towards your shins. Take 3 more breaths. And rise up unhurried from the backside of your heart. All the way up to a nice tall seat. Give your feet a little soft and unhurried shake or rock out. If you'd like, you can also windshield wiper the knees. And then come on back towards center. So we'll come down onto the earth for our next few postures, and we're going to kind of stay there for the whole rest of the practice. So these are the things I recommend having within easy reach. If you have blocks, both of your blocks. Bolster, principally if you like it for Shavasana to support your knees, or if it's not too heavy, we could use it to weight to weight your hips as well. If you have a blanket, if it's a pretty nice and heavy blanket, I'd encourage you to give it a couple unfolds so it's like a little bit wider and a little bit longer, and have that handy as well. And then go ahead and come all the way down onto the mat. Hug your right knee up and in toward your heart. If it feels good, you can give yourself a little bit of movement there before we settle back into a still posture or expression. Both directions, in all directions. And then bring your right foot to the inside of your left thigh and hinge. You can use your hand to help if you'd like to. Hinge the inner line of your right thigh open upward to the sky. So it's like a tree pose, Vrikshasana in the lower body. These will be your options. I recommend, if you have a nice heavy blanket, this is going to be perfect to add a little bit of weight across the hips and the pelvis. You can give it like an extra fold. It's a little bit long, so it goes fully across the hips and pelvis. If that's not an option that you have available, you may also do this with blocks or books. So one to the inner thigh and one to the opposite hip, like so. You also have the option of bolster. And
I'm not going to demonstrate that with my bolster because, as some of you know, our bolsters here are really, really heavy. So, you know, I'm trying to nurture my hips, not force them. So blanket blocks, or if you have a little bit of a lighter bolster at home, go ahead and find that. And then find a hand placement that feels grounded and grounding. So I'm going to place mine right to my hips. For you, it might be to have them down onto the ground. Palms down is most recommended if that's comfortable for you. For a reclined tree pose, we'll settle in and soften in for 3 full minutes on each side. And I really hope that everyone practicing at home is taking time to find the support that you need for your unique body and your unique elemental and experience with your qualities as well. And if you do need some more support for your right hip and your bent knee, go ahead and also, you can take blocks or bolster underneath your outer knee. So it's going to help prop it up just a little bit if it's too intense on the connective tissue there. Once you've got everything you need to be really supported and really settled, if it feels safe, close your eyes down. Just a little bit under 1 minute on this side. Open space to drop into silence or follow the movement of your breath if you'd like a steady rhythm to anchor onto. One last breath. Then with your next inhale, if you have anything weighted, kind of, if it's a blanket, you can fold it over, and it can be nice to kind of keep your left hip, the opposite hip, still weighted. Slide your right knee back towards center. Maybe give yourself another hug or any sort of movement that feels nurturing and neutralizing. And then invite your right leg to rest down onto the earth. If with a blanket, adjust the fold of your blanket so that you can hug your left knee. If you're working with blocks or bolster, just kind of set that equipment off to the side until you settle into the pose on the next side. So begin by hugging your left knee in. Find a little bit of movement in all directions, in both directions. And then bring your left foot to your right inner thigh. Of course, it could also be lower as well if a wider angle works better for you. And then hinge the inseam of your left thigh upward toward the sky. So you're in a tree pose in the lower body. take your weight across your hips, either with a blanket, with your blocks, or with your bolster at home if it's not too heavy. If it's creating a sensation in your practice that's, remember, if it's like sharp or rough, or there's too much intensity to it, that's not nourishing for Vata. Vata really needs softness. And then find a position to rest your hands in that allows you to root down, feel very solid, stable, and steady. Maybe 3 full minutes here. So particularly in this first minute, really gift yourself everything that you need to find nourishment so that stillness can become a viable possibility for you here. Softness and smoothness in your breath and your whole experience. So notice if there's any unconscious contraction or withholding or holding back or holding on in your physical form. Yourself to round smoothly into 3 final breaths, and even knowing that the end of this posture cycle is coming, give yourself permission to stay willfully present on purpose. Course of your next breath. Again, if you're working with blanket, you can fold it over towards your right hip so you have mobility again in the left side. Help support yourself with your hand. Lift your knee up towards center. Really slow as you ease out of yin postures. A lot can shift in the course of 3 minutes. And then draw your knee up and in toward your heart. Find some, the movement after 3 minutes might be a little bit more contained than it was before the 3 minutes of stillness, so really let yourself go slow. Send any blocks or bolsters off to the side. And come all the way on back towards the center. You can land the sole of your left foot down and bend into your right knee as well. So land onto the soles of both feet. I am going to opt to take a blanket underneath my low back. If that's something that you would like to explore, I'm certainly going to go that option because of what I'm working with at the moment. in my body. So you can check that out. Also for this next pose, it is an option to take a block, a yoga brick or some books underneath your low back as well. So if you want a little bit more edge, if that feels like it's nurturing for you, then check it out. Otherwise, we're going to take a really soft variation of an inversion of Viparita Karani. So with or without a little bit of cushion and support for your low back, very slowly extend one leg and then the other. You can allow the knees to stay really softly bent if it's too intense in the hamstrings. The toes do not need to be drawn back as they traditionally would be like in a vinyasa style practice as a more active inversion. You can kind of let the feet be soft. The knees can be soft. Your gaze can be soft. Perhaps allow your eyes to close. For a final inversion, this is a very grounding inversion. Inversions aren't generally going to be the best postures for Vata. They're very, very good for Kapha, for kind of lightening and relieving congestion that can get stuck around heart and lungs. But this one is really quite good for all elemental compositions. It's quite TriDoshic. It's very grounded. And it also has that element of uplifting. So allow yourself to be nurtured here. A few more minutes to go. If at any point you have tingling or numbness, or it simply just feels like it's not right for you to be there anymore, you can take Athanasana by hugging both of your knees into your heart and stay there. Next several breaths, without rushing or hurrying, begin to bend into your knees. Hug both of your knees into your heart. If you're propped up onto a block, like if your hips or pelvis are elevated, please take the block out from underneath you. You might want to take the last little bit of movement. Bit of rocking on your low back or even circling on your low back. You can give your feet a little bit of a loving squeeze. And then this is where you get to pull out all of the the cushy, comfy stuff that you have for your Shavasana. We're really going to luxuriate in this afternoon because we're going to also practice self-Reiki. So take plenty of time and get really, really comfortable. Perhaps a bolster or some blocks underneath your knees. I'm going to put my blanket on, so really make sure you're warm, particularly since we're balancing Vata. Or if there's little jungle critters getting on you that are agitating Vata, get yourself wrapped up in a protective blanket. It's nice too because a blanket gives you a little bit of weight, which is very good as well. Get as comfortable as you can. You might even like to take a rolled towel or rolled blanket underneath your head or neck. And bring your palms together. They can hover over your heart or third eye point. Consider the practices that we learned about today of mudita, empathetic joy, of metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, and upekkha, of equanimity, of balance. Visualize all of those abodes of Brahma, those golden attributes, as something that you are absolutely deserving of experiencing and of expressing. Hold that intention between the palms of your hands. And certainly as we move through this practice, anyone that has experience or training or attunements of Reiki or any other sort of energy work, then you can definitely move into that, although it's not a requirement to be able to send yourself these loving qualities. So as you're ready, bring your palms down as far as you can comfortably reach without force, and rest a palm on the top of either thigh, toward the head or the neck of the femur, top of your thigh. Simply notice the quality of warmth through the palms of your hands. You may notice something like the weight, the heaviness, the grossness, as in, it's a manifest thing that is resting there on top of you. Send direct from your heart center right out through the palms of your hands and into your system. All of these qualities, loving, compassionate, nourishing qualities. Slide your hands now without rush or force up toward your hips. Feel into the bony structures of either hip. You can land there softly. Palms down. And again, notice your immediate sensation, any qualities that you sense as you first land there. Slide your hands now toward your navel, or that spot, the lower hara, just below your navel. Palms down. In loving and kind observation of all that arises as witness state. And at the same time, really proactively sending yourself the same well wishes that you would send to another in your meditation, in your metta or your mudita or your karuna meditation. Slide your hands up now towards solar plexus. So you can let your hands rest to either side of your ribs, or you can kind of stack them if it's not too heavy or if it's not an unpleasant sensation right over your solar plexus as well. Warmth of your palms and the warmth that you're receiving from these nurturing and nourishing well wishes that you're sending inward toward yourself. Slide your hands now upward towards your heart. Chest. Allow your hands to land lovingly, softly at that sweet anahata, the heart center. This is a really important one for vata nourishing, to create warmth and softness at the heart. We'll begin to move our way up toward sending in some loving kindness and some loving touch toward our sensory organs. But first, the motor organ, I'm going to kind of soften and send some loving touch in toward the throat or the neck, so you can land your hands there in a position that's comfortable for you. You can bring balance to this motor organ or action of speech. Slide your hands now toward jaw and mouth. Maybe you have hands over your mouth or to jaw. You can alternate as well to the home of our organs of taste. Soften and balance any sort of onslaught to the sense of taste that you may have experienced today. Slide your hands up towards your cheeks, where we experience pressure from sinuses. You can honor and send in love to your nose, which takes in the sense, that offers the sense of smell. Send in nurturing, loving balance and kindness, your nose, your sinuses. Anything savory that might have been experienced through that sense today. Maybe some of you live in areas where there's still lots of smoke, residue of fires or smog or smells of chemicals. Loving kindness for balance, for nourishment, your sense of smell. Move now toward your ears. Land your hands, your warm hands onto your ears. The ears are actually the sensory organs ruled by Vata. So in particular, really honoring and offering your ears some balance, some nourishment from all of the listening that was required today, from this intake of lots and lots of loads and loads of information. Allow your palms to warm your ears. To soften any harshness that they may have experienced today through either an onslaught or a lack of silence. Slide your hands now over your eyes and land them softly so that the heel of your hand rests over the pocket of your eye. Send in some warmth, some loving kindness. Your eyes really took in a lot of information today, a lot of time on the screen, processing and translating and transferring lots of new terms and new words and Sanskrit and images and lots of faces on the grid, working to digest and transfer all that information to your brain. Give your eyes a moment of loving awareness. then lastly, make contact with your hands to any part of your body, exposed or unexposed. If you're covered up in a blanket, you might want to kind of snuggle in to do this. Make contact anywhere on your body to your skin. Give yourself some really loving movement. Very soft, gentle, nourishing caresses, the organ of touch, of our sense of touch. Honoring how much work this organ of your skin does for you. Every single sensation that you come across throughout the day, whether it's the changes in the temperature that it's translating, interpreting, or the sensation of your clothing, your back. If it's possible, if you're not super duper layered up, you can bring your hands to the skin of your low belly, like lower intestines. Remember the seat in the organs, the seat of Vata is in the colon. Give yourself some loving circles, nourishing, warming touch there. And give yourself any final hand placement or position or any final movement that you feel that you need to settle in to the deepest, most nurturing Shavasana that is possible for your body. So if you need to wrap up, get your arms underneath a blanket, if you need to have something weighted on top